All right, I want to welcome you to our virtual reality program today here in AltSpace. I want to welcome you for and commend all of you for being here. We're going to get started here right now. I'm going to start out by muting everyone's microphones because I know we'll have people popping in here as we get started. It can start to get a little bit noisy in the background and so forth. However, I want to remind each of you that this is an interactive event. So there will be points through the event today that I will open it up to questions, to comments, and so forth. So if you have any question or comment on anything that we've talked about today, I want you to be sure to address it and to bring it up. I will reiterate that again when we get to one of the points where you can ask questions and so forth. But first and foremost, what we're going to be talking about today, so what we're actually talking about in all of these weekly programs is some aspect, as you can see up on the screen there, of how to take charge of your time, your life, and your happiness. That's what these weekly programs that I've been doing for a few months now, almost, I think, going on almost 6 months, in AltSpace, in virtual reality, is to impart the different aspects of taking charge of your life. One of the areas that I feel so strongly is neglected hugely in our education system. Certainly here in the United States, I know we have people that join us in these programs from all over the world. I don't know what it's like in different parts of the world in education systems there, but we certainly do not devote really any time in our education system here in the United States to figuring out how to actually take charge of your life, how to set goals, how to manage your time, how to manage your communication with yourself and with others, your belief structure and what you believe to be possible for you, regardless of what's happened in your life or your environment as you've grown up. And these are such important life skills to have in order to be able to have a very successful life. And that's why I'm very honored to get to come to you each week with one of these programs. And today, we're going to be talking specifically about time management. How to manage your time in a way that it feels like you're getting, far more time out of each of your days than most people ever feel like they're getting. And that's what today is going to be devoted to. So again, I want to commend you for being here because success is not an accident. Today is all about taking charge and driving your life toward the way you want it to be. That's the big thing. It's very easy for us on a moment-to-moment basis to think that we don't have very much control over our lives, that our lives are dictated so much by the things that are happening around us or the other people that are in it or the economy and yes, these are all factors in our lives. Absolutely. But when you start implementing the things we're going to be talking about today, you'll see that you'll take charge of a lot more aspects of your life than you ever thought possible. All right. So that's what today is all about. Now, let's dive into the meat of what we're going to be covering today. First off, we need to talk about the power of belief. The truth of the matter is, whether you believe you can or if you believe you can't, you're right. Now, I love that statement. Whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you are right. Because what we believe to be truth in our lives has more of a factor over what our reality is than almost anything else. Reality oftentimes is nothing more than our belief about what reality is. That impacts us a lot more sometimes than what the reality is. And we've certainly seen that here in the United States over the last few years. It's been exemplified in what people have believed to be truth, despite all facts and indications being to the contrary. And so what we believe has more of an effect on how our day-to-day lives go than ever. And that comes down to, what do you believe about yourself? Do you believe that you can actually make these things work for you? Do you believe that what you discover here today can work for you? And that's why I wanted to start with this, because if we don't deal with this first, then everything else that I say today is going to fall on deaf ears, because it will be very easy for you to think, well, that could work for somebody else, but it's not going to work for me. It might work for Todd. It might work for other people that have different upbringings than I do, that have had different opportunities than I have, that have been, educated in a different way, but it won't work for me. When the reality is this stuff can and will work for anyone, depending on the degree to which you implement it. Your belief in the chance of success and your belief that anything is possible will make all the difference for you on a daily basis. So it's going to be important as you go through this. If you find yourself saying to yourself, okay, you know what, I just don't think this will work. I don't think this doesn't make sense to me. I want you to stop yourself in that moment and go, but what if I'm wrong? What if this will work? And what small step can I take today to implement what I get here and then see how it works for me? Use yourself as the guinea pig. Right? Use yourself and test it for yourself before you decide, yes, this will work for me, or no, it won't work for me. Now let's dive into the meat of the issue. How to get more done in 4 hours than you used to get done in 8 hours. Now this is huge. When you implement this stuff today, that is exactly what you will get out of this, is a feeling of getting more things done in 4 hours than you used to get done in 8. And that's huge. I mean, who wouldn't like that? Who wouldn't love to be able to get more out of their time? Yeah, I'm seeing the emojis going up there from Roughly Polished. Yeah. Who wouldn't want to get more out of their day? Because this is the one thing that we have that is finite. Okay, the most finite thing we have in our lives is the time that we have. So if we can get more out of that time, the better off we're going to be. Welcome to those of you that just joined. Come on into our main room here. Don't be shy. Come on in. Don't worry. I'm not going to pick on anybody or anything like that. Come on in so you can see the screen up here and you can interact with us. Come on in. Hello, Flannel Girl. Hello, Phoenix Lark. Good to have you here. Come on in. And just so all of you know, I'm recording this program today. I don't know that I will be sharing it on a big scale or anything, but I just wanted all of you to know I'm not sharing your avatars or anything like that. I'm sharing strictly the slides that you're seeing up on the screen there, and what I'm talking about here. And I may share your feedback, your comments and questions as we go as well, because those are going to be so powerful. So again, I'll be opening it up to questions and comments as we go at specific spots. But right now I've got everyone's microphones muted just in case there's noise as people come in. But again, what we're talking about today is how to get more done in 4 hours than you used to get done in 8. It's all about time management strategies. And you don't have to be some expert in time management or have extensive training in order to be able to implement what we're going to be talking about today. To the contrary, these concepts will work for anyone, and all you have to do is start implementing them. When you're done with this 1 hour program today, you will have a very clear system for how you can best manage your time. Okay. Welcome to Lee. Hello there. Good to have you here. Lee or Lay. I'm not sure which. I think it's Lee. It's great to have you here as well. All right. So let's dive into our first major key points here. Some facts about your time. Now, first off, the truth of time is that we all have the same amount of it in a day. No matter how successful you are, how powerful you are, where you stand in the political spectrum, no matter how rich you are, we all have just 24 hours in a day. That's it. No one gets any more. Nobody gets any less. Now, yes, we all have different amounts of time on this earth, you know, the number of days that we'll have, and none of us know exactly how many of those days we have, but every day we all get the same amount of time. That puts us all on a level playing field when it comes to time. On a daily basis, nobody gets more time than anybody else. Another fact about your time is if you don't control it, it will control you. How many of you, with a show of emojis, just pop up some emojis if you can relate to this. If you've ever had a day where it felt like I didn't have any control over what I did today. It's just like today just happened to me. All right, yep, I see emojis going up, roughly polished. Yep, Lee, yep, flannel girl raising her hand, Phoenix Lark raising her hand. Yep, exactly. We've all had those days. And that's usually because we didn't take charge of our time. We just woke up and just decided, well, I'll just get started on some stuff and whatever happens today is going to happen. And then that's what happens. Time takes charge of us if we don't take charge of it. And today is all about discovering exactly how to take charge of that time. Now, right-brained creative people tend to have more trouble managing their time than left-brained people do. Now, what I mean by left brain versus right brain, now this is not a hard scientific fact. I mean, I've heard arguments on both sides of how factual the left brain, right brain concept is. But I like it because it makes everything really clear, even as an analogy, even if it's not 100% scientifically proven. The idea is that we have two sides to our brain. Our left side of our brain, which is the part of our brain that dictates logic. It's about the facts. It's about the logic. It's about organization and things like that. Whereas our right side of our brain is much more the emotional side of our brain. It's more in charge of our feelings, of our artistic output, of our ethereal connections to the world, all of those types of things. And I think all of us can agree that whether the left brain, right brain principle is 100% factual or not, we can all agree we have those two sides to us. I believe strongly that every single person has these two sides, the logic side and the creative side, the organizational side and the emotional side. And we're constantly kind of trying to find balance between those two sides. Well, most people tend to be driven a little bit more by either that logic side or that creative side, okay, in some way or other. I tend to be, in my life, a little bit more right-brained, emotional, driven by creativity and stuff like that. And people like myself who might have that proclivity a little bit more than the logic side, we tend to have a little bit more challenge in organizing our time because that's the strength of somebody that's more left brain dominant. So if we have a little bit more challenge in that area, we just need some simple pointers, some simple structural points that we can use to make sure that we're taking more charge of our time. So this is going to be very valuable to whether you are primarily left-brained or right-brained. And the only proven way to take charge of your time is to actually take charge of it. Now, here's a fact that some of you are not going to like to hear, but I'm not going to BS you here on these programs. I'm going to give you the facts, at least the facts as I have learned them, tested them, and proven them in my life and in the lives of people with whom I do life coaching and consulting with. And the fact of the matter is, nobody on this planet can make this stuff happen for you other than you. No other person can. I can be here today and I can give you, and I'm going to work my butt off today over this hour to give you the very best information that I feel will help you. Okay, I'm going to really work hard to make sure that this hour is valuable for you because you took your time to be here today. And that means a lot to me. I don't take that lightly because all of you have lives with important things going on and you could be doing anything right now. And you've chosen to be here in virtual reality, in this beautiful room together, and take the time to do this. But the fact of the matter is, when this program is done today, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you just going to go back to life the way that it's always been and go, oh, well, that was a nice little hour-long program, and I got some good stuff from that. Okay, time to go about my regular day. Or are you going to say, no, as soon as this program's done, I'm going to implement at least one small thing that Todd gave me today. I'm going to put it into action. It might just take you 30 seconds. It might take you a minute. It might take you 5 minutes to just start putting this into action because that's the only way you're going to see true difference. So with a show of emojis here, show me some emojis if you are dedicated to taking what you discover today and starting to implement it as soon as we're done? Show me some emojis if you'll dedicate to that. Okay, I'm seeing over half. I'm seeing almost all of you that are showing some emojis or raising your hands. That is fantastic. Okay, because truly, I will do everything I can here to change your life. Now you'll have to go and implement it to actually make that change in your life. But the nice thing is this isn't rocket science. And a lot of people want to make this a lot more complicated than it has to be. But if you keep it simple, keep it fast, you'll be able to keep it going. That's the key. This is not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. It's not something that takes a ton of study. It just takes taking these keys and implementing them very simply. So that should give you a lot of encouragement in that this isn't going to take you long to be able to implement and start perfecting. Now let's talk about some habits of successful time managers, people who manage their time well. What are some of those habits and how can you immediately start to implement those? It looks like did you guys lose my sound? Hold on a second here. Let me mute myself. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, good. It sounds like you lost me there for a second. Thank you for pointing to your ears. That's what I love about virtual reality is even if I can't hear you, if I see people doing this, I know you lost me. All right. Successful habits of time managers. First of all, one of the most powerful things that good time managers do is when they're in doubt about what they should be working on at any given moment, they always ask themselves, what's the best use of my time right now? So if you're ever not sure what should I be working on right now, stop for a moment and genuinely ask and answer this question. What is the best use of my time right now? Now, what that doesn't mean is what do I most want to be doing right now? Because that might be climbing back into bed and taking a nap or going on a vacation to Paris or what. And those are wonderful, lovely things. And, there are times and places for those things in our lives. But when you ask yourself, what is the best use of my time right now? When you're honest with yourself, oftentimes it might not be the thing that you're doing right in that moment. So when in doubt, use this incredible habit of successful time managers. The second habit of successful time managers is to eliminate or minimize any interruptions. To have a private workspace with rules in place to keep people from bugging you, yes, even at home. Now, I want to preface this by saying I am not just talking about your work life here, although all of this stuff will apply very well to your professional life, to your job, to your career, whatever it is, but it also applies to any other areas of your life. If you're a family person, maybe you're a stay-at-home parent who also works from home, but is taking care of children on some level, or taking care of a parent who can't take care of themselves anymore, whatever it is, you've got a lot of responsibilities, right? How do you balance these responsibilities? Well, one of the first things you have to do is you've got to take charge of the interruptions in your life. Now, for example, anyone that has children, this is going to be a challenge, right? Because if you're a stay-at-home parent and you're trying to get other things done in addition to taking care of the children, then you need to find those times where you can let those children know that for the next hour or so, I'm going to be working on this other project. And it doesn't mean I don't want to be spending time with you and taking care of you. But for the next hour or so, I'm just going to need you to kind of settle down here and kind of, read your book or watch this program or, play with your toys or whatever it is. And try not to interrupt me unless it's really an emergency. Because during this time, I'm going to be working on something else. And then when I'm done with that, I promise you, I'm going to come with you and we'll play a game for a half hour or so. Okay. It really becomes important to manage interruptions. And by interruptions, I'm not trying to say that children are a negative thing by being an interruption. Not at all. Children are wonderful things. They're fabulous things, and they should be your number one focus, absolutely, as a parent. However, you can, as you start to lay down these little rules, these little guidelines for children, they will start to respect them. That's one of the mistakes that a lot of parents make is they think that children don't want boundaries. They think that children just want to be able to do whatever they want. But in reality, Psychology has shown that children thrive on boundaries. They thrive on having stipulations. They want someone that is going to guide them and that's going to give them some rules. They really do. Even if they'll say they don't, deep down inside, that's what they gravitate toward because that's how they learn how the world works. Okay, so that's just one example. Now, other interruptions could be social media, right? How many of you, with a show of emojis, just pop some emojis up if you feel you might possibly spend more time on social media than you should? Go ahead and show some emojis. I'm going to pop some up right now myself because that certainly can be me. And I saw emojis from almost every single one of you here. And of course, that can be a huge thing, whether it's Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. We've got all of these things that are competing for our attention. So one of the best things you can do is minimize those interruptions by shutting off your social media at times. Give yourself guidelines of when you will allow yourself to be on social media and when you won't. Now, this takes willpower. This takes dedication, right? Because again, you're the only one that can do this. You could tell me today, Todd, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to dedicate that, only for 1 hour a day at a specific hour of the day am I allowed to be on social media. But only you can actually put that into place, okay? Put that into action. Now, the wonderful thing is there are some apps, there are some websites and so forth that can help you with that if you have challenges with that you can program in specific times of the day that are the only times of day that you want yourself to be allowed to be on social media. And that can help. I used one of those for a period of time just to see how it worked, and it really did help. Okay, you can find those things online, but eliminate or minimize any interruptions. Shut off email and social media at the times of day when you don't want to have those interruptions. Email's another thing. Most people nowadays have it set up on their smartphone so that when an email comes in or a private message comes in on, say, Facebook or one of their social media platforms, that it'll bong at them. It'll go bing. And then they go, oh, I've got a message. Oh, I've got an email. I better go check that, right? What is that doing in that moment? It is interrupting the flow of the time that you are dedicating to whatever else it was you were doing. And that is so hard to get back. Once you get interrupted, it's very hard to get back to where you were. So make sure that you implement those things. Here are a few other habits of successful time managers. First of all, go somewhere else to work. Get a change of scenery where you might not have as many interruptions, either self-imposed interruptions that can happen or interruptions that are imposed by others upon you. For example, at least, now in a world where COVID, at least here in the United States, certainly seems to be more under control than it has been over the last few years, things are opened up more. You might feel more comfortable going out to coffee shops and stuff like that, or going out to a park. It's springtime right now, almost summer here in the United States where I live in Michigan. And I love going out to parks, and I'll just go to I'll bring my little chair, or I'll go out to a picnic bench and sit out there, and I'll do some work there. And I'm out in a different environment. It gets me out of my world where the typical interruptions might be. Next up is read your goals aloud every day. It keeps you focused and motivated. Now, how many of you with a show of emojis have written down goals for yourself in any area of your life? And don't worry, if you don't show emojis, I'm not going to make fun of you. Okay, good. All right, I'm seeing a good number of emojis going up. Having written down goals. Now, how many of you that just popped, or how many of you in this room attended my program last week that was about goal setting, about setting goals for yourself? Show me some emojis or hands up. Okay, I see about 2 of you. Okay, good. That is such a powerful thing. When you write down specific goals for yourself, whether they're short-term, medium-term, or long-term goals, read those aloud to yourself, and that can keep you focused. So that when you do ask that question, hey, what's the best use of my time right now? When you've got your goals in your mind, at the forefront of your mind, then you might go, well, something that's going to help me get toward these goals that are important to me, right? So don't underestimate how important it is to have written down goals and to read those aloud to yourself every day. We're going to come back to that when we talk about the importance of PTS time in just a little bit in this program. Also, don't forget about the fun things as well. Sometimes they need to be scheduled in. It's very easy for us, as we get better and better at managing our time, to strictly manage our time when it comes to the things we, quote, have to get done, right? The important things we need to get done for our job or for the other people in our lives, which are important things, of course. I'm not minimizing those. But also make sure, right, we got to find balance. That's what life is about. The more we can find balance in our lives, the better we feel on a moment-to-moment basis. So don't neglect the things that are important to you individually. Recreational things that you love to do, even if they're small things that only take a few minutes. Maybe you love to read. And if you're like me, you find that you have less time to read typically than maybe you used to do. Well, then just carve out and say, hey, I just want to read for 15 minutes today. I don't have a lot of time, but I want to make sure that I just sit down and I read something purely for pleasure or read something for, to further my understanding of a certain subject, reading a biography, whatever it is that brings you joy. Make sure you set up time to do that in your day. Don't ignore the fun things. And then, of course, last but not least, successful time managers reward themselves. Now, of course, the main reward that you're going to get from working on any of these things is going to be the result that you'll get from achieving those goals, of course. But sometimes it's important to reward yourself with other little things. For example, I'm just going to give an example here. One of my favorite things to do is I'm a big moviegoer. I love movies. I grew up on movies. I'm old enough to have seen the original Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, when it aired in movie theaters back in 1977. And I saw it as a kid, and it changed my life. I became very interested in movies. So one of the things that I do to reward myself sometimes, if I'm working on a project that, hey, I really want to work on this project, I want to get this accomplished, or at least this part of this project accomplished, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reward myself. When I get this part of this project completely done, I'm going to reward myself by taking myself out on a movie date. I'm just going to go out. It might be in the middle of the afternoon. It might be at night, whatever it is. I'm going to take myself to a movie because I'm one of those weird people that also enjoys going to movies by myself as well as going to them with others. So little things like that. Or it might be, hey, I saw this necklace or this bracelet or this watch in this shop and I really liked it. And it's not super expensive, but I'd love to treat myself with something like that. And if you have the discretionary funds to do that, then give yourself these little rewards. Okay? Very, very important. It might be to reach out to somebody, a friend, and just see if they can go hang out and, go to a local bar or a restaurant or out to a park or do something that we all enjoy together. That brings me to the next major key point here, which is the power of what's called PTS time. Now, no joke, if you get nothing else from today's program, if you leave here with nothing other than this one key point, it can change your life starting today. Now, that might sound like hyperbole. That might sound like exaggeration. You might be thinking, come on, Todd, how can one thing as simple as those 3 letters, PTS time, how can that change my life starting today? Because if you implement PTS time starting today or starting tomorrow morning, okay, you will start to see a difference in how in control of your day you are, far more than you've ever been before. So let me talk about what the specifics of PTS time is. PTS time stands for planning, thinking, and study time. Planning, thinking, and study time. Now, one of the analogies I like to use to explain how important and powerful PTS time is, scientists have basically come to the conclusion, and I think we can all agree, that on some level, our brains, the human brain, is really like a computer. It operates very similarly to the way that a computer does. Granted, it's a computer that's made out of biological material, organic material, rather than silicone and microchips. But the way our brains work is very similar to the way a computer works, or a smartphone, anything that's got a computer in it. Well, I want to ask you all a question. This is a rhetorical question, okay? But when you boot up your computer first thing in the morning, so before you went to bed the night before, you shut your computer down. You didn't just put it to sleep. You shut it completely down. When you get up the next morning and you boot up that computer, what is the first thing that computer must load into its memory before it can do anything else? And that thing is its operating system, right? Every single computer on this planet has an operating system of some sort. It is what it loads into the memory first thing that will tell it how to deal with the rest of the information that's going to get put into it the rest of the day. And if you don't load that operating system up, your computer is just a brick sitting on your desktop. Your smartphone is going to be useless if it doesn't load that operating system. Well, if our brains are like a computer, then doesn't it stand to reason that if we load the proper operating system into our brains first thing in the morning when we boot up our computer of our brain, which is when we wake up, then wouldn't we be more effective at dealing with whatever information comes into our brain throughout the day? Show me some emojis if that makes some sense, right? Okay, good. Yeah, I'm seeing the emojis going up, all right? The reason that makes sense is because that's exactly how PTS time works. Think of PTS time as the operating system for your brain. When we go to sleep at night, our brains make a shift, right? They go from conscious thinking into some subconscious stuff, where when we go into REM sleep, right, our brains are functioning in a very different way than they typically do during the day. So when we get up in the morning, we want to reprogram our brains to be thinking the right way. And that's what PTS time is going to do. Planning, thinking, and study time. Now, I'm going to strongly recommend that you do this first thing in the morning when you get up. Now, this is so important because, again, if our goal is to load the proper operating system in, then we have to do that when we boot up the computer. And we're booting up the computer first thing in the morning. You can't do PTS time in the middle of the day and expect it to be effective for you. You can't do it first thing at night because then what you're doing is you're loading that operating system in your brain just before you shut your brain down to go to sleep. That doesn't make any sense, right? So important to do this first thing in the morning, whatever morning means to you. Some of you might wake up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Others might not wake up until 9 o'clock in the morning because they were up until typically, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning the night before. Whatever you get up in the morning, just make sure this is the first thing you do after you get up. You brush your teeth, you use the restroom, maybe you grab a beverage, whatever it is, and you sit down and you do your PTS time. And what you're going to do is you're going to devote at least 15 minutes, okay? At least 15 minutes, but preferably 20 minutes to each section. Now, I know some of you might think, wait a minute, if I have to devote 20 minutes to each section, and there's 3 sections, planning, thinking, and study, that's an hour a day. Yes. However, if you can't manage that as you start doing PTS time, what I'd rather see you do is rather than saying, nope, there's no way I can take an hour out of my day to do this, then I would rather see you do 10 minutes for each section. That's the bare minimum is 10 minutes. That's 30 minutes total. Every single one of you can get up 30 minutes earlier if you need to in order to do this. So start with at least 10 minutes a day for each section and then see if you can get up to 20 minutes as you go. You might find that 20 minutes is better. You might find that just 10 or 15 minutes is enough. But the key is, notice what I said there, 20 minutes or 10 minutes minimum for each section. That means you need to devote an equal or relatively equal amount of time to both to the planning, the thinking, and the study. The reason that I'm stating that is because oftentimes when people start implementing PTS time into their lives, they spend a lot of time on the planning because the planning seems easy. The planning is straightforward, as you'll see in a minute, because I'm going to tell you how to do each one of these sections in a moment. The planning seems easy because I'm sitting down and I'm planning out my day. That's very logical. I can do that. I get my calendar out or my planner or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Very easy. But when it gets to the thinking and study time, they get a little lost. And they're like, well, I'm not sure what I should do here. Don't worry. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do there because you want to devote the same amount of time to all 3 sections. If you skip the thinking and the study time, your PTS time is not going to be nearly as effective. You're missing big chunks of that operating system to load into your brain. Welcome to those of you who just joined us, Eden and Alexander. Good to have you here. I've got everyone's microphones muted at the moment. I'm going to give you an opportunity to raise your hand if you have a question or a comment a little bit later. But I want to get through this PTS time section because I have a feeling we'll have some questions here. And just so everyone knows, I am recording this session today, but I'm only recording the audio and the slides that I'm showing on the screen. I'm not recording any video here. So if any of you are uncomfortable, being on a recording, asking your questions or making your comments, just keep in mind that I am recording this. I don't know that I'll be sharing this out there with lots of people or anything like that, but I'm recording it mostly for myself and maybe to share on our Facebook page where some people that weren't able to attend this today can rewatch this program. I think it'll be very valuable for them. Okay, so we're talking about the power of PTS time, 20 minutes for each section, planning, thinking, and study time. Do this for the first hour of the day or half hour if you're just doing 10 minutes per section. Do this instead of watching or reading the news. Oh my gosh. Okay. We got to talk about this. Now, I'm a bit of a news junkie myself, okay? I like to know what's going on in the world. I like to know what's happening, right? And so forth. So I do like to be in touch with that stuff. However, one of the worst things you can do is to start your day off by watching or reading the news. And why is that? Because most of the time, I think we can all agree, show some emojis if you agree with this after I state this, that most of the time the news that we watch or read is pretty negative, right? It's pretty rare that we're reading or watching something on the news that was positive. I'm not saying it never happens, but it's pretty rare, right? You turn on the news and it's gloom and doom. It's terrible stuff. And why is that? Because that's what the news outlets have realized people gravitate toward. They get more views, they get more readership when they're bringing up the negative things that are happening in the world. So one of the things we need to do is we need to keep that out of our minds, because if that's what you load into your brain at the beginning, if that's the operating system you load into that computer of your brain, well, that's going to impact you the rest of the day, isn't it? You're going to start your day off on a negative note. So do your PTS time instead. It's going to feed your mind with the positive things. All right, let's talk about the P in PTS time first, and then we'll spend a little bit of time on the thinking and study time as well. But I want to start with the P. And actually, yeah, I'm going to go through this section, and then I will open it up to some questions, because I think that we'll have some questions after this as well. All right, again, the P stands for planning. And what this means is you're going to plan out your day. Now, I want everyone to be sure to hear this. During your planning time in PTS time, all you are doing is planning out today. That's it. Not tomorrow, not this whole week, not the whole month. All you are doing is planning out what you're going to do today. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't maybe have a running calendar of other things that you're going to be doing over the next few weeks. But during PTS time, I just want you to focus on today. And here's why. If you try to focus during your planning time on what do I need to do today, tomorrow, the next day, this next week, this next month, you'll get overwhelmed, and it'll take you hours to plan out your next week or month. But if all you have to do is focus on today, it becomes very easy. All right, so that's why I want you to just focus on today and only today. Now, there are two methods that I have found that work best for planning out your day. One is called the scratch and go method, and the other is what I call the make a date method. Now, both of these can work very well for you. However, spoiler alert, I have found that for me and for a lot of the people that I coach, they find that the make a date method works the best of the two. But I'm going to give you both of them so that you can test them out on yourself and see which one works best for you. Now, I'm going to start with the scratch and go method, because the scratch and go method, the beginning of the scratch and go method and the make a date method work the same. What you basically do for the scratch and go method is you're going to sit down with your things to do list. Now, you should have, and if you don't have one already, you're going to want to start one today. You should have in writing a growing things to do list. It's just a list of the things that you want or need to get done. Okay, it might be little things like do the laundry today, or go to the grocery store and make sure I pick up groceries for the next few days, or whatever it is. Or it might be something larger like, get resumes sent out so I can find a new job, or, things like that. Whatever they are, you should have a growing list that you keep on you at all times of just all the things that you want to get done. What you do during the scratch and go method is you start out by looking over that things to do list and making a note of the things that you feel you should be working on today. Now, notice what I didn't say. I didn't say the things you want to be working on today. Some of those things will apply as well, but you want to ask yourself, what are the things I should be working on today? What are the things that are important to getting me toward my goals? What are the things that are important to get accomplished before they become fires that have to be put out, right? That they become so urgent that I have to deal with them right this second. The goal should always be to get things done before they become fires. That's where you're going to have a lot more peace and balance in your life. So that's the first thing you do is find some things. And I usually limit it to 5 or 6 things maximum that I want to get accomplished today. Okay, they might be small things, they might be larger things, whatever it is, but I usually limit to 5 or 6 things. And then I'll write those 5 or 6 things down on a separate piece of paper or in a separate window on my computer or whatever, however you like to do this. Then what you do is you take those 6 things that you wrote down and you prioritize them in order of importance. What's the first thing I should work on today? What's the second thing, third thing, fourth thing, fifth thing, sixth thing? Okay? And you prioritize them in order of importance. And then all you do is through the course of the day, you start with that first thing and you work on it until you get it done. And then you move to the second thing. Work on it till you get it done. Then the third thing, fourth thing, fifth thing. Okay? That's all you have to do. It's super simple. Now, a couple of key points here. You might be thinking, but Todd, what if that first thing, the number one thing I wrote down, takes me the whole day to do it? Then I might never get to the second thing. Okay, well that's where it becomes you have to look at that list of 6 things and maybe break some of them down into smaller bite-sized chunks. So for example, if one of the things that you wrote down was I need to send out resumes so I can get a new job. Okay, well, if you haven't done any steps on that yet, that would be Herculean, right? That might take you a long time. If you haven't written your resume yet, you might have to write it, and then you got to find places to send it. Then you got to get posted up on there, and then you got to send out the emails with the resume, all that stuff. You might get overwhelmed and go, well, that'll take way too long. I'll never get that done. So all you do is you say, okay, then I'm just going to do the first part of that today, which is write my resume. That's it. I'm just going to write my first draft of my resume today. Okay, that's doable, right? Might take you an hour, might take you 2 hours, might take you 3 hours, I don't know. But you will still have time to get to the second, third, fourth thing on your list. Now, you might also not get to all 5 or 6 things you've listed. That's okay, because the goal here is to get more done than you've ever gotten done before. And as you scratch those things off your list, when you accomplish them, you're going to have this incredible feeling of accomplishment as you scratch them off. And even if you don't get to all 6 things, you will be getting more things done than you've ever gotten done before because of that focus. Okay? So that's the scratch and go method. Now let's talk about the make a date method. The make a date method works similarly to the scratch and go method. The beginning of it is the same. You look over your things to do list. You write down the 5 or 6 top things that you want to get accomplished today. But here's where it changes. Instead of just starting to work on number 1 and working on that till it's done and then going to number 2, what you're going to do is you're going to pull out your calendar and you're going to schedule these things into specific times in your day. Super powerful. This worked so well for me. So for example, in the example I just gave, first thing on my list was I'm going to craft the first draft of my resume. Okay, well then when I am looking at my calendar, my schedule for the day, I do mine on Google Calendar. It's super simple. And I just go to the day part of the calendar so I can schedule things in for each half hour or hour of the day. And so if that's the first thing on my list, then I might say, okay, from 8 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock a.m., I'm going to work on crafting the first draft of my resume. I think it'll take me an hour. Well, you know what? I think it might take me 2 hours. So I'm going to do it from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Okay, boom. That's on my calendar for that time. Then I go to the second thing, and I schedule that in from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, or however long I think that's going to take. And then I schedule my lunch in, I schedule my workout in for the day, whatever it is, and all that, okay? Now, the power of that is at any given moment of your day now, when you've spent that time at the beginning of your day doing that, laying out your day, then it becomes incredibly easy for you to know at any given moment what you should be working on. There's no question. All you have to do is look at your schedule and know from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I'm working on writing my resume or whatever it is, okay? It takes away that huge amount of wasted time that we have in a typical day where we are just looking at ourselves going, I don't know what I should be doing right now. I've got so many things, I don't even know where to start. Okay. All right. So does that make sense to everyone? The scratch and go method, the make a date method. Show me some emojis if that makes sense. I'm simplifying it a bit here because we only have an hour together, but it's really that easy. Just start doing it today. Start doing it tomorrow morning since the day's already started today. Make a point to tomorrow morning, start with your PTS time and do that. All right. Before we move on to the T and the S, the thinking and study time of PTS time, I want to open it up to any questions that you might have. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to clear the raised hands a second. If you have a comment or a question, hit the raised hand button at the lower right of your screen. If you have a comment or a question. Now, I'll tell you right now, there are no bad questions or comments. Okay, don't worry. Even if your comment is, Todd, I disagree with everything that you've said here. I don't think this stuff really works. Or I've heard something else that works better, whatever it is. I love having a conversation, even if you disagree with something I've said, as long as we're just respectful to each other and we don't say, well, you're stupid, that's wrong, that's dumb. If we just have a conversation, that's great. So any question or comment that anyone has, there's no such thing as a stupid question other than the question that wasn't asked. So go ahead and hit your raised hand button. If anyone has a question, go ahead and hit your raised hand button. If not, we will continue on and we'll answer questions or comments at the end. Okay, I'm not seeing any raised hands. That either means that I'm doing such a great job of revealing this stuff that it's all super clear, or you're so confused you don't even know where to start. I'm going to hope, show me some emojis if it's the first thing. If this is just going so well that it's super clear, show me some emojis. All right, good. All right, good. All right, there we go. I'm seeing some emojis there. Roughly, you raised your hand there. Did you have a question, or were you just saying, yeah, I agree with that this is just super right? Do you have a question? If so, nod your head. If not, shake your head. Nope. Okay, no question. Awesome. All right. Lucky Strike, did you have a question or a comment? Where's Lucky Strike? Go ahead and nod your head if you actually had a question, or shake your head if you did not. Okay. Nope. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and clear that as well. All right, let's move on with the rest of PTS time, and then I will open it up to questions again before we wrap up here. Actually, I just went ahead of myself. Let me go back to that previous slide, because now I want to talk about the thinking and study time real quick. So the P is just the first part, but that's the easiest one for me to give you a structure to, because we have the scratch and go method and the make a date method, and it's super clear. When it comes to the thinking and study time, it's a little less easy to say this is the way to do it. Let's talk about thinking time. What the thinking time is, again, you're going to devote the same amount of time roughly to the thinking time that you did to the planning time. So between 10 and 20 minutes a day. And that's where you're going to sit down in a place where you won't be interrupted, where you can focus, and you're just going to think about the big picture of your life. Now, don't feel overwhelmed, okay? This shouldn't feel overwhelming. And what by big picture of your life, what I mean is you're just going to sit down and just think about what's going on in your life. Your goals, maybe. Do I feel like I'm getting closer? How do I feel? Do I feel happy? Are things going well in my life? And if not, what areas of my life do I feel things aren't going as well as they should? In what areas do I feel like I'm improving? In what areas do I need to make some changes or tweaks? Things like that. That's what you're pondering. Because guess what? In our lives, we are not educated or encouraged to do this. We're just not. Certainly here in the United States, the ethic in the United States is you get up in the morning, you go to work, you do a good day's work, and you come home. You're just boom, 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 just day to day, go do your stuff. But when do we have time to sit down and think about our lives, and are we happy, and are things going well? We need to do that as part of our PTS time, that operating system we're loading into your brain, because guess what happens? We tend to become what we think about the most. We tend to become what we think about the most. Now think about that. If what you tend to think about the most are the things that are going wrong in your life, the things that are bad, what do you tend to focus on the most? You tend to focus on the things that aren't going well and the things that are bad in the world. But when we start focusing on the positivity, when we start focusing on the things we want to have instead of the things we do have, or we focus on the things we want to have versus the things we don't want in our lives, then we tend to gravitate more toward finding those things we want. There's a great example of that is in sports. What they will tell you in sports, let's say you're a professional golfer. What your coach will tell you, if they're a good coach in professional golf, is they will tell you, focus on where you want the ball to go, not where you don't want the ball to go, right? Because if you focus on don't hit the ball into the sand trap, don't hit the ball into the sand trap, don't hit the ball into the sand trap, you'll probably hit the ball into the sand trap because that's what your brain is focused on. But if instead you're focused on get it in that hole, get it in that hole, get it on the green, whatever it is, you'll be much more likely to have a positive result of that. Our brain focuses on what we're telling it to focus on. whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing. Show me some emojis if that makes sense to you. Pop those emojis up. Love it. All right, all of you, you're very engaged. That's good. Every one of you popped some emojis up right there. And what that tells me is you're paying attention. You're invested. You're engaged here right now. Because you could be multitasking. You could be doing a lot of other things while you're listening to this, or popping up another window in your virtual reality space and checking emails. You're engaged in this, and that shows me you are dedicated to making these changes. So that's what you do during your thinking time. For those of you that said you had written down goals, and those of you that maybe didn't but are going to start writing down written down goals, this is a good time, the thinking time during PTS time, to take those goals out and read them to yourself aloud. It keeps you focused on the things that are important in your life. Again, this should be part of our education system every single day, but it's not. Every single day, in my humble opinion, from kindergarten on all the way through high school and even into college, 1 hour a day should be devoted to the things we're talking about today. Think how much more prepared for life our children would be. How much more prepared for life we would have been if for 1 measly hour a day, we were studying things like positive thinking, goal setting, time management, our belief structure, how we communicate with ourselves. Those are such important things, and we're not taught those things in school typically. We have to go outside and encourage ourselves to learn that. And if you live in an environment where you're not even aware that you can learn these things, that's a horrible thing, right? There are people all over the world that never even realize I could study how to think differently. You know, you're all here. You obviously get that, and I'm so fortunate that you're here. Now let's talk about the study time. What do you do during the S of PTS time? And that's study. Now, I personally think that it shouldn't be called study time. Now, I learned this from other very, very smart educators over the years, and they called it PTS time. I think it should be called PTM time, because instead of study time, I think it should be called motivation time. Because when you think about study time, you might think, okay, Todd, you're going to tell me that during my study time, I should, study something about how to be a better business person, or how to be a better parent, or how to be better at this or that, whatever it is. When in reality, that's not what I recommend you do at all there. That's good. I'm not saying don't do that at some point, but don't do that during your PTS time. During the study time, or what I like to call motivation time, what you should do is you should be reading something that motivates and energizes you. Now, whatever that is for you, it's going to be different for every single one of you here. It's going to be a different thing. But it has to, the only rule is it has to motivate and energize you, make you feel energized and excited to get out there and do something today. I'm going to give you an example here. So for myself, I oftentimes will read autobiographies by people who have had some level of success in an area that I appreciate. Filmmakers, musicians, business people, whatever it is, because that usually motivates me, because in any autobiography, they're going to talk about the struggles they went through in order to have success. And sometimes when I'm reading that, I go, oh, wow, this person who I admire had all these struggles they had to overcome. If he could do it or she could do it, so can I. Okay? For other people, it might. One of the people I love studying is Tony Robbins. I don't know how many of you know who Tony Robbins is. His educational, his teachings have been very powerful for me over the years. I don't agree with every single thing that he says, as you should question anything that you learn from people and pick and choose the things that you agree with and disagree with. But 95% of what I've learned from him has been incredibly helpful for me. Well, I've got a book that's sitting on my shelf. I can't see it right now. I'm actually looking under my headset. My desk is over there in my real world. And sitting on my desk is a book called Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. It was written 35 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer. I've read it cover to cover many times, but I keep that book on my desk because during PTS time in the morning, if I don't have something else specific that I'm reading during my study time, my motivation time, I will just pull that book off my shelf. I'll turn to any page of it and I'll just start reading, and I'll read for 10 or 20 minutes. And after that 10 or 20 minutes, I feel more motivated and energized and excited. Okay. For other people, it might be something spiritual. It might be the Bible, the Quran, whatever you read that brings you a spiritual sense of excitement, motivation. Okay. There's no wrong answer as long as it motivates and energizes you. Okay. So that is the power of PTS time. Start doing that. Do it. Here's what I'm going to challenge all of you with. Okay. I want to challenge each and every one of you for 1 week, just 1 week, commit to doing PTS time every morning. 1 solid week. Don't miss a single day, okay? And then I want you at the end of that week, or even as the week is going on, to ask yourself, do I feel like I'm getting more done than I typically do? Do I feel like I'm more focused? Do I feel like I'm more positive? Do I feel like I'm I'm living better with better balance? And I am willing to bet that if each of you do this, commit to every single day for 1 week, at the end of that week, you will look back on that week and go, this was transformative. This was a very different week for me than Now, does that mean you're not going to have challenges? Absolutely not. Does that mean that, I planned out my day perfectly and my day went perfectly every single time? No, you'll have interruptions that'll happen. You'll have things that come up that you didn't expect. But when you use your PTS time properly, you do that every morning, you're going to be able to handle those unexpected challenges when they come up in a much better way than you ever did before, because your brain's been programmed with that proper operating system. Show me some emojis if you are truly committed to trying this for 1 week. And again, there's no wrong answers here. If you don't show emojis, I'm not going to make fun of you. I see a lot of emojis going up. Almost everybody in the room. I hope you will take that seriously. Start with it tomorrow morning. First thing in the morning, set your alarm for a half hour earlier than you typically might get up. Get yourself in a place where you're uninterrupted and do your PTS time. All right, with that, I want to open it up to questions for the 5 minutes or so that we have left here. I'm going to go ahead and make it so you can raise your hands. There you go. If you have a comment, question, challenge, if something that I said sparked something, you said, but Todd, what about this? Or how do I handle this? Or I have these things that are going on in my life that would make it challenging for me to do PTS time every morning. Whatever it is, hit your raised hand button. I'll unmute your microphone and you can let me know what your comment or question is. And don't worry if you are worried about, I'm not sure how to word my question or my comment. Don't worry. We're not all professional speakers here, okay? I just want to hear from you. And or if you want to say something like, okay, this is helpful and I'm going to start doing this right away, let me know that as well. All right, I haven't seen any hands be raised as of yet. All right, I'm just going to keep that open. If you have a comment or question, hit your raised hand button. And while I'm waiting to see, there we go. Okay, I think I was just delayed. I've got 3 people with raised hands. I'm going to start with Lee. Let me go ahead and unmute you, Lee. You might have to unmute yourself as well. What is your question or comment?
So first of all, this is very helpful. Thank you. And I never thought of adding the motivational part to this. So yeah, thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, the motivation time or the study time, as others have called it, that's so powerful and so very important, because that gives you, we've all had those days where we wake up in the morning and you just don't feel like getting out of bed, right? I had a bad day yesterday. I didn't sleep well. Today just feels overwhelming. I don't even want to get out of bed. Well, when you do this motivation time as part of this in the morning, you'll realize that it's okay to feel that. We feel that sometimes. But also, that doesn't have to dictate the rest of your day. And it helps so immensely. All right, roughly, Paul, I'm going to go ahead and unmute your microphone. You might have to unmute yours as well. What is your comment or question?
Hey, what's going on? So the question I have is, I have about 5 different endeavors I'm kind of taking on, and they're all kind of big business kind of things. So I'm trying to figure out how to kind of manage all 5 in a kind of manner, because you're telling me to break it down. I'm one of those who gets very like, oh my God, there's more to do. I don't have enough time. And so how do I go about giving myself enough time within the given span, knowing that each one of my projects has so many little sub-projects underneath it? You know what I mean?
Sure. I sure do. Oh, that's a great question. So my answer to that, I've got a couple things that I think will help you immensely with that. First and foremost is, first we have to give ourselves permission to understand and embrace the fact that our lives are busy, they're complicated, and we've got a lot of stuff going on. No matter what you do in your life, if you were to write down on a piece of paper everything that you do through the course of a day, a week, a month, a year, no matter what it is, it would be an astronomical list, right? For example, my things to do list right now, where I just write down everything that I need to work on or get done or whatever, when I looked at it this morning, was 385 items. Okay? 385 items. Now, it would be very easy for me to feel overwhelmed looking at that, but I also realize that all of those items are not meant to be done instantly. All of those things don't have to be done right this second. But I write down anything that I think of that I have to do. So the first thing is to understand that you will have a very long list. The next thing I want you to keep in mind is whenever you can break down these major subjects into subcategories, here's a small thing I can do here, here's the next step, here's the next step, and then just start chipping away at those, you'll start using what's called the principle of CANI. CANI, which stands for constant and never-ending improvement. I learned this from Tony Robbins, who I just mentioned before. Constant and never-ending improvement, which means don't get overwhelmed at all of the big things that you have to get done. But instead, stay focused on just making steps forward every day in all the areas of your life that you want to make steps forward. So, for example, with all of those tasks that you have, when you break them down into subtasks, then you might have 5 or 6 different subtasks in these different areas. And each day you're moving forward on each of these 5 or 6 major items by getting one of the steps done today. There may be days where you're only working on one of those big projects, but you're doing 6 of the sub steps that just have to get done quickly because this particular project has priority. But the key here is to not feel overwhelmed and to give yourself permission to know you could feel overwhelmed because we've all got a lot of stuff going on. So I hope that answers that question. I literally, roughly, I could take 3 hours just to answer that one question because that is a great one. How do we manage the overwhelm? And the PTS time really helps with that. At the end of your week of doing PTS time, you're going to see, oh my gosh, I got a lot more done than I thought over the course of 7 days. Over those 7 days, I took a step every day in these 5 or 6 different areas. That adds up to like 35 steps forward that normally I maybe wouldn't have taken because I would have felt so overwhelmed. I was just trying to figure out what to work on any given moment. That's one of the biggest time wasters, by the way, in our lives, is questioning what we should be working on. All right, it is 11 o'clock. I have one more question that has come in. I'm going to stay on and answer any other questions or comments that you may have, but I also realize some of you might have to leave. Before you leave, I want to, again, thank you for taking the time for being here. I hope you found this helpful today. I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you in a very short amount of time, but I'm seeing so many emojis. You have no idea what that means to me. Okay. The reason I'm here today is I want to get to just one of you with one idea that helps you in some way in your life to get more out of it or to feel more in charge. And if I do that, it makes everything that I'm doing so worthwhile. And to see that you're invested and engaged, that makes a huge difference. Commit to the 7 days of doing PTS time and join the Facebook group that we're on. If you go to Facebook and in the groups and you just search on how to change AltSpace, if you just search on those words, how to change AltSpace, which stands for how to change your life on AltSpace, you'll find our Facebook group. Join that Facebook group and maybe even comment or send me a message or something in there letting me know how it goes the next week as you're doing your PTS time, or if you have some stumbling blocks. I am here for you every step of the way. So I want to quickly show you those. Don't let the momentum end here. Just attending today isn't enough. You have the tools and strategies to take charge of every aspect of your life. Make a commitment for 21 days. In this case, I'm just saying 7. Just start with 7 days. And after you do that, if it worked well for you, commit to 21 days. Then it becomes a habit. It generally takes about 21 days for something to become a habit. And then remember, I'm around. I want to hear from you on that Facebook group. I'm here to help you in between these calls. So stick around if you want to hear our last question or comment that comes in from Omni1. And if you have to go, I totally understand and thank you for being here. Omni1, I'm going to unmute you. You might have to unmute yourself. What is your question?
Hey, first and foremost, I just want to thank you for doing this little seminar here. I learned a lot.
You bet. Thank you.
I just want to say, you're welcome. Now, I just want to ask you, like myself, I find it easier and better for me to plan the night before the next day. You think it's okay to use the do the PTS technique the night before, or should I do it the day of?
Oh, fantastic question, Omni. I love that question because I'm very much kind of what I would consider to be a night person. And I thought exactly the same way when I started studying PTS time. I thought, I'm a night person. I think I might do better if I do my PTS time at night instead. And so I tested it. And I tested it by doing 2 weeks of doing it in the morning and then 2 weeks of doing it at night and seeing how things went differently. And here's what I found. I found that it was far more effective to do it first thing in the morning. And here's why. First of all, PTS time acting as that operating system for our brain, how you start your day has more of an effect on how the rest of your day goes than almost anything else that happens throughout the day. If you start your day off feeling positive, organized, ready for the day, you're going to be so much more prepared to handle any obstacles or challenges that come up. And if you do your PTS time just before you go to bed, then all you've really done is prepared yourself to dream, prepared yourself to go to sleep. And then when you get up in the morning, you're going to be much more affected by what you dreamt over the course of the night, whether you remember it or not, than you will be by the PTS time work that you did the night before. So that's what I found is absolutely without question, doing it in the morning worked far better. Now test it on yourself maybe just to see. One thing that I could say, I would not recommend this. Okay, this wouldn't be my first recommendation. But if you want to, maybe try doing the P part, the planning, the night before. Okay, if you want to do that. But by all means, do the thinking and study time in the morning when you get up, because that's the stuff that's really going to affect how the rest of your day goes. If you want to do the planning the night before, that won't change all that much over the course of the night, right? But the thinking and study time, all that programming you've done of your brain through thinking and study time can completely change because of what your subconscious is doing as you're sleeping. Does that make sense? Go ahead and show me some emojis, Omni, if that makes sense. And if you got a follow-up, go ahead and re-raise your hand there. Great. Excellent. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this program now. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to unmute everyone's microphones in case anyone wants to stick around and talk afterwards amongst yourselves. Feel absolutely free. This room shouldn't close even after I have to leave to go into my next consultation session. But I want to thank you all for being here. Have a great week. Take action on what you discovered today. You have more control and power over your life than you think. Doesn't mean that stuff around us isn't going to have an effect, but this will help you manage that effect in a much better way. Have a great rest of the week, everyone. I'm going to take myself off megaphone here, and then I will pop out and just, I want to say hi to all of you because I'm sick of standing on the stage here. There we go. All right. Thanks for being here, everyone. Head on out whenever you have to. Stick around if you want to chat a little bit, and have a great week.
Thank you. You too.
You bet. Thanks for being here, Lee, and thanks for the great question. Wonderful. Yeah. Thanks for being here. Tommy, good to see you as always. Great to have you back. Lucky Strike. Hello. Good to have you here. Jose, glad you made it. And Mohammed, great to have you here as well. And Roughly Polished. Fantastic. Eden, it was great having you here. Omni, great having you here as well. And I know we had some that were out in the lobby listening from back there. Have a great week, everyone. Next week, by the way, I'll be doing this again on Monday morning, starting right at 10 o'clock sharp. It'll be a different subject matter, but all in the realm of how to take charge of your life. So make sure you come back for that one. I'll have that one posted on AltSpace, hopefully within the next few days or so. Take care, everyone. Bye.